playgrounds. They will have a truck here on Thursday to deliver the equipment. It will be unloaded at Ben Franklin, and they will be out to view the sites also on Thursday and get ready for setup and installation.
Okay, thanks. And this is something that's been on our topic agendas for the past couple of years. Just wanted to give an update to everybody on where we're at with that. So, and then I'm sure in future years, because we had plans to do more, so we'll discuss that.
Yep, I think the committee pretty much in audit and finance voted to have that as like a standing allocation, in capital reserve every year. So
Okay.
And typically summer is the time that it gets installed. So
Do you remember what that was?
I want to say it's $25,000.
Yeah.
Is that enough to do a playground at a time, or is that short?
We're actually doing two because we did not do one last year, so we're catching the end of last year's budget and this year's.
But 25,000 is enough to do what you need to do. It's a little tight, isn't
It
it?
gets a minimum playground.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to hog time to 25,000. That if you need another 5,000 to do a playground, let's not shortchange it. We did that with the books for years and years. We underfunded that. So I just want to make sure that you have enough money to do what needs to be done, and that we don't wish, So if that has to be increased, we have to come back.
Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is the playground going to be inclusive, or does it have any inclusive equipment that kids with impairments can use?
These do not, but that is something that Mrs. Urbanian and I spoke about, and something that we would like to look at in the future.
Wonderful, thank you.
In that charge, we're still using mulch underlayment, mulch surfaces, and for a true accessible inclusive playground, we need to change that. That would take $25,000.
Really?
That spongy bottom is very expensive.
Oh.
For one playground. So, and I'm making that number up, but it's very expensive. My experience has been that it's almost the price of the equipment. So, but if we're going to do exclusive, we got to fix the surfaces. And so that's another charge here. Okay.
Okay, I didn't know how much.
And a lot of the playgrounds don't have a path to the playground. It's just out in the middle of the yard. And again, that's a problem for a wheelchair.
Oh, very much.
So to make it inclusive.
You have to have a path and.
Well, yeah, it's just not having the swirly thing on the ground. You have to actually get to it and be able to get to it.
Teleportation.
Hey, Tom.
Not yet. We haven't worked that out yet.
All right, well, next year.
Yeah. And that, less than 25,000. Mr. Shea can take care of it. Okay.
Someone spoke on the computer, Mike. I'm not sure who.
Terry, are you able to hear?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Elijah Dolly.
Yes.
We were not able to get in using the link. It was saying that someone needed to let us in, but that wasn't working. So I'm calling in on the through the phone, as well as Tom Shelley.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Third topic is dealing with the storage of Eisenhower material and equipment and furniture and that sort of thing. And this is an important topic also because of timing. And this is related, of course, to the Eisenhower fire. So I'm guessing, Jared, you're going to talk about this?
Yeah, we, as you know, after the fire, everything was basically moved out of Eisenhower. All the materials, all the movable objects have been moved out in order to be cleaned. And that has been happening since April, since the fire. We have recently, over the past couple of weeks, brought a lot of the classroom material back, not the desks and chairs, not the teacher's desk, not furniture, that type of stuff. Just a lot of the books, the paper, all that type of stuff.
Brought it back to where?
Brought it back to Eisenhower.
Eisenhower's not clean.
The building itself is clean.
Spotless.
I mean, it's not perfect. It's not ready for
That's
kids, but it is everything. Then teachers have been brought back into their classrooms to allow them a space and place.
Have those boxes been opened yet?
Yes, sir.
And the teachers have found them acceptable?
So far, yes. I mean, most of the teachers have gone through their stuff.
My concern is somebody blowing it off and sticking it back in the
No,
box.
no, I was surprised, no.
Yeah, well, that's good, that's great news.
I even have taken stuff over to where I'm gonna be for now, and there's no smoke smell coming off of it or anything like that, so far, and I've not had any teachers say to me that something was unacceptable at this point. They
That's
spent
great.
about 4 hours apiece last week working on their boxes and dividing what needs to be at the junior high and so forth.
Yeah, so I don't want to say the majority of this stuff has been brought back. The majority of the classroom stuff has been brought back, and that was mainly because they need it for teaching this year. There's still a lot of stuff out there. The teachers have been doing an excellent job of going through what they need, and what needs to go to the junior high is going to the junior high because the teachers are going to be there for the entire year. So we've been moving a lot of stuff. They have also been purging a lot of stuff, getting rid of stuff that they don't need anymore. So we've been kind of calling and having a dumpster take it away a couple times a week here. So they've been doing an excellent job. They still have some stuff to go through, but we're not recommending bringing everything back because we don't want it just scattered throughout the building. A lot of the big furniture items are not coming back. We are bringing a lot of desks and chairs back, and those are going to Ben Franklin where we need them for cafeteria because we have additional students at that building. We've brought a lot of the kitchen equipment back, which is going into other buildings. Because of most of the kids who were other places have come back into that building. We've also
This is unrelated to the ag fire.
yes, it's just instead of having
They
the
don't bring their own desk with them?
they don't. We don't require that. So Cheney and I have been working a lot with Fire and Water to bring stuff back that we need in other buildings instead of having it sit in storage for the next 2 years or 1 to 2 years, however long that may be. But there are things that we don't want back. So what we need to discuss tonight is where do we want to store that? Greg and I, before his retirement, went around locally, talked to some different places about where we can store it locally, but also Fire and Water and kind of their partner company who has done a lot of the cleaning has also offered for a price to store it as well. Fire and Water, they're the company that does all the cleaning at this point has come in at the lowest price, but we are still talking around $6,600 a month to store what is left. $6,600, yes. The insurance company is done paying at the end of this month. They will no longer pay to store it once it's been cleaned.
And that's part of our discussion.
And it could be, and there may be some ongoing discussion with that.
And that's the lowest?
That is the lowest, yes.
What have the other ones been?
And that is at a quote of about $1.20 per square foot.
Okay.
The other quotes we have gotten just locally is around $340 a square foot.
Who have you asked locally?
We've gone to Indiana Mall to see if they have space available, which they don't have anything really conducive for us. We went over to the old Fisher Scientific building to ask the company who's managing that, which they have plenty of space, but they are asking $3.40 a square foot to rent the space over there for storage. It's not climate controlled; it is just an area within the old manufacturing facility itself. So.
And McNaughton's doesn't have space that we can do this with. Is that-
I don't. It's the old Fisher Scientific.
No, McNaughton's is moving storage.
They may have. Or is that the Levity building, or is that the other side? We went and talked to the other side, so I'm sorry.
It's just south of there
On Old
Yeah.
119.
where the signal is, where you go the back way to Homer City.
Okay, I don't know that we went and we spoke.
McNaughton Brothers
We did not speak
moving
with.
and storage is right there.
Yeah, they're pretty reasonable.
No. Certainly, we'd rather have money spent locally. We don't want to overspend, but there's got to be some vacant buildings around. Have you contacted any of the realtors about this?
I know Greg and them. Greg had talked to a couple of different people. I don't have a list of those names specifically, but again, the current where it's currently being stored is the cheapest we could find. So
So what do you need from us tonight?
if they will bring back a proposal and it is a month to month, for right now, and I can certainly reach out to McNaughton Brothers too to get a proposal from them.
How much footage do you need?
That depends. They're consolidating it right now because, like I said, over the past couple of weeks, we have been bringing a lot of it back. They are also, if it's going to be more long term, we'll consolidate it, wrap it, stack it, those type of things. If it's going to be a more long term commitment, they just won't do that. If every month we're going to be calling in saying, "Hey, we want this table back, we want this chair back, we want those individual
So
things."
you'll get a square foot. How about if you call them and get an approximate square footage once it's compressed?
Well, if you divide the 120 to the 6,600, you get about 5,000 feet.
Yeah, I mean, right now, yeah,
I mean,
it's
as an order of magnitude, it's not that big of a space.
no, we've really condensed it with bringing everything that we have back because they have brought how many truckloads of stuff back to the building, and they still have some to bring back over the next couple of weeks, and they're bringing about 80 desks
But
and
none of
chairs.
this is going into Eisenhower. It's all being used around the district.
Some of it will be will be stored at Eisenhower, stuff that the teachers may not necessarily want at the junior high, and whenever we figure out what we're doing with Eisenhower, may need to be moved somewhere else as well. But there is no room at the junior high for everything. There is no room down to maintenance, but the teachers needed to go through their classroom stuff to figure out what they needed to be brought to the junior high. And the only way of doing that was bringing it a room back at a time. So,
Jared, you talked about the cost with the different companies locally and the one from the company provided. For my ignorance, is there any additional cost that we would have to pay as far as to transport the stuff here, or would our guys go get that? What were you projecting as far as, hey, if we did want to move it locally, what extra cost would we occur if at any?
if we want to bring it back locally, then basically the insurance company will pay to move it back here. And that they've done that all the way through so far.
The space where it's at now, is it conditioned?
It is, yes.
Okay.
It is
So that's,
climate controlled.
I'll be surprised if we can find something for about 20 square foot.
Well, I guess,
It's conditioned.
yeah, the other question is there any space at Eisenhower that we could put it in 4 classrooms and we got it? And Eisenhower, you're not going to turn the heat off in Eisenhower.
No, we're not.
I mean, you could put it in a multi-purpose room or whatever, and then whenever that room gets renovated, you move it out.
Yeah.
You
You could do it there. You could put it in the music rooms, in the library, for instance. It's just a possibility. We got a vacant building. We have to work around it, but we already own the ground, and we're going to pay the utilities on it. Chime in when that sounds really stupid, but I'm not looking forward to spending $70,000 for the next 12 months.
It's going to be longer than 12 months.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. For $70,000,
Yeah.
We can move it a couple of times. Think about it, okay, and tell us why we shouldn't do that.
I guess, when do you need an answer sort of by the end of the month if we're going to have to pick up the tab of where it's at now?
Yeah, the insurance company is done paying as of the end of August, which,
Which that negotiating is going to take probably a long time.
Which,
Whether they continue to pay for
yeah,
it or.
that's
Right.
irrelevant to the story.
So we have to make a decision by the end of the month.
Yeah.
It either stays where it's at or we bring it back to Eisenhower, I think is probably where we're at, unless somebody knows of some building that's less than $1.20 a foot.
It sure seems like we should be able to find something locally for less than.
My basement.
Yeah. I got a barn. For $70,000, I clean it out.
Put heat in it.
For $70,000,
I
it was
can't
more
actually
than my
take the money,
house.
I have to donate.
That's right.
Okay, yeah. So, it seems like there should be a better solution. And I'm not willing, and I'm not signing off on letting the insurance company off the hook at this point.
No, none of
Either.
us are.
Yeah, so,
No.
but they're gonna send us the bill, we got stuff.
Right.
Okay.
So I'd say within the next week or so, unless someone here or on virtually that the word spreads around that, hey, this space is available and here's the price.
Yeah, well,
Do we
yeah.
want to move it back to Eisenhower? I guess that's
Well, that would be plan C. Plan B would be,
leave it where it's at.
that's plan A, and plan B is leaving to someplace locally that we don't know about yet. That would be less than $6,000 a month.
That's what I'm thinking too. Yeah, if we don't find something within a week or so, we move it back to Eisenhower.
and maybe then in a year and a half, if we are doing work at Eisenhower, when you need to move it out of there for some reason,
Well,
we
and
can.
what you could do though is you could finish the west wing at Eisenhower, move the stuff.
Let's
into
not
that.
get on the rabbit hole.
So we
Yeah.
can, but for $70,000, we can move it a couple times.
So Cheney, you got the direction you were looking for in the matter? Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Kerr.
All right, let's go to number 5 to keep things
You're so
rolling here. I'm going quick.
I
We have
see
to
that,
leave
I see
time
that.
for this other
Anybody
stuff.
here hand up there?
Stadium pads, what's the update on stadium pads? And from what I saw, the turf's down, it looks great.
Yes. Turf's down, fences moved. I had a discussion towards the end of last week with the company that's refurbishing the pads. And they sent an email out to Lisa that they will be shipping around the 25th. The 27th is our first game.
Wow.
So I immediately got on the phone with them and I had all of my information before I talked to them. The person that sent the email was the one who answered the phone, and I explained to her what had transpired up to that point, and I said, this is not acceptable. I explained to her the reasons why. She said, I'll call you back. I'll get with production. She called me back an hour later. I spoke with production. It's on the forefront of our minds. And she said, we will try to have it shipped by the 20th. That's this Friday,
Where is it? Where they at?
Philadelphia area. So hopefully by the first of the week we have the pads, we can get them installed prior to the first game.
How long does it take?
Yeah, let's back up just a step. Okay, when we opened up that football field, the pads weren't on that fence, and they got put on pretty quick because that fence is only 3 or 4 feet beyond the end zone line.
I don't think it's going to take a long time to reinstall them.
No.
We just need to have them all here.
I'm just worried that they go to Arizona or somewhere on a truck.
They've already delivered half. We have half of the pads. And very shortly, we're going to start laying those out to see what we have.
Is that like one end
because there's
zone or is
different
that just
sizes.
randomly?
It depends on what sizes are there, what they did on the first half.
I
We
think,
have half of them. We're waiting for the other half.
speaking for everybody around this table,
Maybe.
so Cindy would disagree with me if she, we're very concerned about having a football game without those pads in place.
Yeah.
Okay, very
That's why I
concerned
tried
about
to
that,
make that
to
impression.
the point that we forfeit the game. Okay,
Oh, well.
see, now I've gone too far.
Wait till it keeps breaking down.
Well, Tom, if you feel like a road trip this weekend,
Well,
you know.
no, I'm serious, that's one of the possibilities,
Yeah.
is that we send
Well,
the
let's
truck to
keep
pick them up.
going.
Yeah.
Let's wait
Yeah.
and
If
see if
there's
the
a
pads
problem
come
with
in.
delivery, okay, and picking them up so that we actually get them at the factory and don't lose them in some 40-foot truck, that would make sense
Tom,
too.
you're going down a rabbit hole.
I am going down a rabbit hole, but boy, this is a
We're gonna
problem.
be going
We
down the road
understand.
in the truck and pick up pads.
So-
too.
I'll be happy to do that.
So, Mr. Kerr, if I understand Cheney correctly, we're going to wait till August 20th, reevaluate, see where we're at, see if the rest are in. In the meantime, he's also going to go through and do an internal inventory about what we do have available, start putting those where they're needed, and then we'll get back to you from there.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I will get in touch with them later this week to find out where they're at in production,
Just to get a.
so that I have a focus.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, it's a critical piece.
Okay, thank you all. Number 4 is the building air cleaning. We had discussed this in the past. It's been a while. I think, Jared, you said you were gonna have some information
There was a-
for us. Yeah,
Packet out there. Anybody-
I
So
got
it's
it.
gonna be in here. I'll go get mine. Thank you.
This is the last quote that we had, kind of last time we talked about it back in the spring. Mr. Trout had this put together about putting bipolar ionization in different areas of the school, across all of our schools. I think this was handed out at that time to the entire board. The quote is to put units in pretty much all the unit ventilators across the district, across the buildings for $190,000.
That's ventilators in the classrooms.
Yes, from what my understanding of it is pretty much now the senior high may be a little bit different, and this is not
Okay, so there's 2 prices. One is 190,000, for every classroom having, and the other one was 18,002 for the major machines. I'm on the third page, I believe, into the third sheet, back to the third sheet.
Page 6, yeah. Yeah, the 190,000 is per unit, a unit, a system in every unit ventilator in every classroom. Then the 18,200 is additional for some of the bigger machines at the senior high, bigger areas, including probably cafeteria, gym, auditorium, those areas.
But also the discussion that came up the last time also was what's the word? Not controversy, but I guess it sort of is, of whether this stuff's effective or not. It's sort of aligns with the whole thing is it depends what website you go on. There's studies that say this really doesn't do much. There's other studies that says it does.
There's some studies that make everybody nervous about the ozone.
Yes. So that's why it sort of went off that is why it went off the back burner. You know.
Yeah, I wanted to take another look at it to make sure that we're going to take a pass on it. So do you have an opinion on this?
I did look at the information that you sent out for everybody, and it is concerning. I don't think any of us have enough knowledge when you read how they did some of their testing, and it's basically in a shoebox, and they tried to make that comparison for a classroom. I don't know what to say about that. I'm uncomfortable. Some of those experts that commented on this and their concerns with the ozone and how harmful it is, especially to young lungs, did make the statements that HEPA filters and higher MERV rated filters are the best way to go and the safest way to go. And I did a little bit of research on HEPA filter systems today, units that could be placed in classrooms that have enough air change to meet the needs of our classrooms at our size. But then you have the filters that you have to buy for those on an annual basis that are $50-some per filter.
Is it annual or is it monthly?
It's an annual. I did look at the time what they're rated for, and basically 3,000 hours, which gives you 360-some days at 8 hours a day. But that's $54 per filter. They're a small device that sits in a classroom.
But you still got to go around and change
But
every
once
filter.
a year, which that could be done in summer mode. They're a quick change. Little panel at the back, pop one up, pop one in.
When you say the HEPA filter, is that just like a little dehumidifier box? Is that what I'm picturing?
Essentially, they're, they get larger as the capacity grows. But the ones that I looked at that identified would meet the needs of our size classrooms. They're capable of making one complete air change every 30 minutes.
How much was it?
I think there was 840 cubic feet. It calculated out about 30 minutes.
What was the cost?
Cost was about ballpark about $300 a unit. But and then you have $55 per filter
Per year.
once a year.
Yeah. And how many would we need?
I'd have to get a classroom count on the top of my head.
Okay. But on this, your recommendation is to take a pass on the bipolarization at this point.
I'm concerned.
Okay.
After reading the information that you sent out, and I wasn't a whole lot involved when we were, doing the first look at this. I do have some concerns.
Cindy wants to say something.
Which professionals do you listen to?
Yeah. So bipolar ionization, I'm still not sold on it, but the HEPA filter units also something that you probably need to look at and do some research on is the noise level. because I know a teacher who's teaching in a classroom in Ohio that there's no window. It's a basically a storage room that they had to turn into, and that's what was provided as far as ventilation, and it's so noisy you can't hear yourself think. It happens to be a language teacher, and you can't teach a foreign language if you can't hear, but even so, just that extra noise is just so. I assume there are probably quieter models and noisier models, so that's something to look at if you're researching.
They all of those should have a zone rating, which is,
Right.
that's the
Right.
noise. And this is I just pulled from one that I actually got an email from a gentleman from Florida that this is his business. That's another thing that plays into this whole big picture, and all these different things that they're selling is they're all salesmen.
Yeah.
And they're all going after those millions and millions of federal money that's out there. And that
What are they telling you as far as the MERV number that you need?
they recommend a MERV 13 filter minimum.
Yeah, but if we're talking about catching coronavirus, from what I remember when I did it before, we've got to have at least MERV 17 to 20. So,
But when you get to that range, then you tax the ventilators
I know.
that are filtering.
I know,
And
But-
that's going to cause some severe wear and tear on those units.
I know, or make
That's
us
the
buy much
downfall.
bigger units that cost a lot more money and are very noisy. And so the research I did on those too, I thought was just prohibitive, but
It's difficult.
it's,
Yeah.
I say if he's not sold on it, I don't think the pollution and the COVID is bad enough to spend $200,000 on a system that's really just seems to be, let's tack on more cost to it than anything
You
else.
do have these in the nurses' room, is that correct?
Excuse me?
These are in the nurses' offices?
It's a similar device,
Yeah.
yes. It's in the nurse's offices now.
Do you want Cheney to look into the MERV filters and the standalone units, or should we just
No.
pass on that?
No,
Okay,
I don't.
okay, very good.
All right, thanks. And I think probably the important thing too, to let everybody in the public know that we have a year and a half ago, Greg and Cheney and the maintenance crews did go around and up the airflow as best that the equipment would allow in all the buildings and areas where they could. So it's not that we're not doing anything.
Yeah, that's true, right? Is there anything else you recommend that we do?
Some of the units I have changed the filters, the ones we've just recently bought. I've stepped up to a 13.
Oh, so you've increased the quality of the filter?
I did, and that reduces that micron
Mhm.
filtration about half of it's twice as good as it was, and all of our air handlers and unit ventilators are adjusted to at least twice as much filtration or outside air
Mhm.
as there were. Some are 3 to 4 times as much. So we're getting much more outside air, which gives us better air changes in all of our educational spaces.
Okay, thank you, Cheney.
Utility costs.
Keeping the meeting moving so we have adequate time for number 6, which is the building reconfiguration discussion. I know it's an important topic for the district. It's an important topic for all of us. And just to summarize, we had engaged with 2 consultants that are going to help us through this process. This has been a discussion topic within the district for years. And, we took the extra step to ask and get some help with doing this transparently, correctly, and including everybody. So I don't know, Debbie, are you going to open this up or?
Well, a couple of just maybe technical things. Is there a microphone that we can use that the people on the phone can hear?
There's a
People on
portable-
Zoom
There you
can
go.
hear.
Use that portable.
Okay, because I'm being told that if Jared or Mike aren't talking, it's hard to hear on Zoom. Okay, so,
It should be on. It should be on then.
okay, good. So, So I'm just going to do a little introduction of this process. So the consulting firms that have been hired to support this process are Strategy Solutions and Mr. Rodney Green, who are working together to help provide a sort of objective way of looking at these options. And over the past week or so, our consulting team that includes myself, my colleague Jackie Catchagone, who's on Zoom, and Mr. Green, have been interviewing board members and members of administration to look at different potential options. And our intent of possible reconfiguration of the schools. Now, one of the options is actually to keep the configuration the way it is. That option was put on the table. And we have 9 other options that have actually been identified by various board members and members of administration that we're going to put forward. And Mr. Green is actually going to explain what the rationale was behind each of the options. We have it in written form for the board members that are here tonight. And we're going to give members of the public who are either on Zoom tonight or here in the room, if there are any other options that you'd like to put on the table this evening, we're going to give you each a couple of minutes. We're going to actually give a 2-minute time limit if there are other options, and I might go to 3. But I mean, most of the options that we'll put on the table, we'll put on the table each in 30 seconds or less. So if you want to give a rationale for them, we can extend the 3 minutes. But we would like, again, our opportunity tonight is to look at these options, add any other options to the table, and then look at, give the public an opportunity to add additional ideas if there are any other configurations that we want to include. So I'm going to give the microphone to Mr. Green and let him talk about the options themselves and the rationale for them.
Thank you, Deb. And I just want to reiterate again, these options have been identified by you. So we are messengers tonight. Good messengers, I hope so. But you have been very creative, and you also have come up, I think, with good rationales to really back up these options. And again, on the sheet, the list that was given to you, again, the current configuration, which is the pre-K 3 in 2 buildings and the 4-5 in 2 buildings. And your junior high is still 6 to 8, and then your senior high 9 to 12. And when we ask people a question, we start off by, how do you think this is working? Is it working, excellent, very good, good. Currently, most people said they thought it was working well. We did get some answers that were not as good, so to speak, and we got a little bit more of the perspective on what their rationale behind that. I think a lot of people look at how the buildings are organized and look at skills level and development. So as we went through all these options, that rationale kept coming up. Look at the developmental characteristics of the children. Look at not just their age, but what stage they are in life. And those things do change, as we all know. We also looked at the whole idea. There were some comments made that there have been some lessons learned in this configuration, and that especially that clustering of the 4th and 5th graders. Believe it or not, some people believe that facilitates the transitioning to the junior high school. That when you separate the 4th and 5th grade from the pre-K to 3, you can focus a little bit more, not just on the skills development. I think, again, preaching to the choir, but most of you have heard that term, that when children are younger, we're teaching them how to read, learn to read, and when they get older, they're reading to learn. So they're making that transition in that 4th and 5th grade stage from learning to read to reading to learn, and are also learning some ideas and some other aspects of what the social and emotional learnings that go along with moving on to a junior high school environment. Option 2, I'm just going to run through these so again you can look at them, was identified as, okay, let's look at pre-K to 3 in 2 buildings. Let's keep that 4 and 5 concept together in 1 building. And then let's look at the junior high and the senior high staying the same. In that option, there would be 1 less elementary building. And again, one of the ideas behind this is look at consolidating the special teachers. And again, this comment came up many times over, and I know it's probably been spoken in prior discussions about this, but you have a number of teachers who travel between buildings. That time takes away from instructional time. depending on what their area of specialty is, depending on what type the schedule is. And I know when we talk to people, sometimes even buildings have, like some of the specialties are so many days per week or on a cycle, and that cycle can change as you try to get more efficient in the instruction. The phrase fifth graders are not socially or emotionally equipped to be in junior high school. That phrase was uttered many, many times. And again, it's a rationale. Let's just look very hard at the concept of are fifth graders ready to move into that junior high environment. You don't have a choice right now, in the sense that you have some there, but the rationale kept coming up. Again, clustering fourth and fifth students together facilitates that transition, the transition to the junior high. And I know when we got comments from people, I will tell you again, this is just not an Indiana area school district issue. Transition from elementary to middle school or junior high is an issue in every school district in this Commonwealth. And so, but there's no doubt about it, it's at the front of everyone's concern here. And the other thing too is it creates more teacher collaboration. When you get all the grade levels, like you have in this option 2 for fourth and fifth grade in one building, you now have all the fourth grade teachers, all the fifth grade teachers, you have an entire grade level under one roof. So there has the opportunity there for more collaboration. I'm going to say more consistency in delivery of the curriculum. And certainly the teachers, if they have shared planning time and some other concepts, you can pull together, again, that some different initiatives. You're not splitting it between a couple different buildings. Again, that option, as I said, would close one building.
There's also more opportunity to do more creative things with special education.
Absolutely.
It's not listed on here.
Yes. And again, and that, just thank you, Devin. That special education issue also came up, I think, in just about every option we looked at. Option 3, just moving ahead again, we're looking at pre-K to 4 now in 3 buildings. Keep the junior high, make the junior high permanently now a 5 to 8 junior high school environment. Senior high stays 9 to 12, and that would also be closing an elementary building. And again, looking at consolidating those specialty teacher schedules, looking at the available time for increased instruction, and also what came out of that was, hey, we're looking at our junior high school building, and there is space in that building. We've had to use it this past year, and coming up. Now we could utilize that space effectively, maybe putting the entire fifth grade in there, depending on how we could organize it. I think, looking at option 4, again, you'll see some variations on the theme here, but option 4 says pre-K to 4th in 2 buildings instead of 3 buildings of option 3. Keep the junior high at 5th to 8, and under that option, you could actually close 2 buildings since you're putting pre-K to 4th in 2. And again, it says, let's use the junior high space, let's consolidate teacher schedules, let's also look at how we're sharing some of the specialty teachers. Under option 5, now we're going into a little bit of a different model. Some suggested that we look at a pre-K to 2nd in 1 building, a 3 to 5 in 2 buildings. Junior high stays 6-8, and the senior high 9-12, but that would still close the building. Again, it kind of goes back to that concept, are the 5th graders really ready to go to the junior high school? I think that was one of the rationales behind that model. But the other thing is, by putting pre-K to 2nd in 1 building, you now have in essence, an early learning center. You now have that especially pre-reading and early reading developmental, early language arts development, all under one roof. So you have the ability to concentrate and even enhance a variety of support options in that pre-K to 2 in 1 building. Looking at option 6, and you just running through again, we're going to give a chance to ask questions about these. You would have K to 5 in 2 buildings, 6 to 8, 9 to 12, and basically you could eliminate 2 buildings under that option. Again, K to 5 in 2 buildings would split it up evenly. I know we didn't mention it in this rationale here, but part of your configuration that you're in now, another rationale is you're looking at class sizes and being able to equalize class sizes also. When you're split between, when you had K to 5 or K to 5 in 4 buildings, I know you had some disparity in class sizes, and so you've been able to eliminate that in more evenly balanced class sizes when you went into the current configuration. You see those same advantages in some of these other configurations also. And the other thing is what came up, I know that we call it emotional support, but the idea is to look at some of the counseling and social and emotional needs of students once you get into those K-5 buildings. And again, that's something that's come up quite a bit in the pandemic also. Moving to option 7. Again, there's been this idea put out to have a pre-K to 1 building, which would be an early learning center, a dedicated early learning center for just pre-K, kindergarten in 1. And then, pre-K in 1 building, pre-K and K, and then a 1 to 3 in 1 building and a 4 to 5. It creates an early learning center. It organizes now your buildings the whole way up through by levels of skills development. So you have a pre-K, the K building in 1, a 1 to 3, 4 to 5. So in other words, you have all the grade level or all the teachers in that particular grade level under one roof. So all the 4th teachers are under one roof, all the 5th are under one roof. It increases that ability to collaborate. Option 8 now takes pre-K, the same thing, in 1 learning center, but goes back to having 2 buildings with 1 to 3 and then 4 to 5 in 1 building. So again, taking time to split the 1 to 3 up, they have a little bit more smaller groupings under 1 building, but then put the 4 to 5 back in together in 1 building. Again, the rationale going back to getting those 5th graders ready for the junior high school. The 4 or 5 allows you to concentrate on that on top of the curriculum.
Ron,
Yes.
in option 8, you say pre-K, you mean pre-K and kindergarten in 1 building?
Pre and K, yes. Yeah. So it'd
Yeah,
be,
so any place that says early learning center, that's pre-K and K
Yeah,
together,
it's
but
2,
only those
it'd
2.
be 2 grade levels, although.
Right. I'm just making sure.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, your pre-K is not district-wide, right? It's more like pre-K counts. Not every pre-K student in the district is enrolled, or they are.
It's only about 40 kids total.
Okay, that's what I thought. So your pre-K is really not a district-wide pre-K program?
No.
Okay, yeah. And then option 9 goes to the heart of looking, okay, let's kind of go back to let's make it K to 6, use all 4 buildings. And again, the rationale would be that it would create some efficiencies. It would actually take 6th grade out of middle school, make the junior high 7, 8, and senior high 9 and 12. And it would provide, again, some increased ability to provide emotional support for these students. And then option 10 would be to look at a K to 5 and 3 buildings. That way we're utilizing 3 buildings, junior high 6 to 8 and senior high 9 and 12. Again, for some of the same rationales, I think, again, they keep coming back to a number of people were concerned about the 5th graders moving on into the junior high. There seemed to be also this great need for looking at your specialty area teachers. And I'm saying again, I think you know this, but just for the general public, there are a number of teachers that are employed who are not classroom teachers. You have a number of specialty area teachers, and a number of specialists, whether it be reading specialists, all kinds of people. So again, going back to a 3 building setup, but that option still recommends closing 1 building. So those are the options that came from you, from those interviews with all the people. And again, if we certainly, if we wanted to add any other options to this list here tonight, from anyone else that's here or called in, we can do that before we get into our exercise of where we're going to start rating those options.
Well, I agree, Rod. Let's take,
Well,
yeah, I was going to say, let's get more options if there are any first, and then
Yeah, or
we'll
questions
open it up
about
to
the
questions.
options we have. And if you would, could you give her the microphone?
I thought you said 11. I thought you said 1 and 10.
There are,
Okay, so there's existing in 9, not.
Yeah.
Yes, it's existing in the.
yes.
I think that when the options, I think it'd be nice to know the estimated classroom size.
What do you mean classroom size when you say that?
I mean, because we don't know, because, all right, so right now, about 20 kids average class. If we moved them into 3 buildings, how much would that increase our classroom sizes?
That's not on the table. Okay, so.
Okay, I just.
No, but the class size is already set. And if
Yeah,
we
we're
move-
not
If we
changing
moved
our,
off 2,800 kids in the same building, we'd expect to have 20 here and 25 there, regardless of where they are.
We're not changing the class size.
We're not changing that criteria.
Correct, yeah, criteria.
No, it might impact it, but that's a difference.
It won't impact class size, it may impact how many kids are in the school.
Or how many rooms.
How many
How
rooms.
many
Right.
And how difficult it is to get to an ideal number. One of the problems we had originally was we had some classes in fifth grade that were 17 kids and other buildings for 27.
Right.
Okay, but we were still aiming for that class, we're still aiming for a controlled class size.
Well, let's go around the table. Tom,
In our intent, I just want to clarify, I just want to clarify related to our intent of the process. Our intent of the process is to put all of the options on the table that we can possibly put on the table. So if there's additional ones, anybody has additional ideas, let's put them on the table now. And then our intent is to get the board to cut down the number of possible options to 4, 3 or 4. If we can get it down to 3, that's even better. So that all of the data around what those options look like, the most favorable options, you can actually make a decision based on data.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, thank you.
And Mr.
keep
Kerr,
this moving. We'll go around the board and the admin team first for questions. and then-
yeah, just a point of clarification, if you're okay, Mr. Kerr. We asked our friends from the architect firm to be on the call, just to be listeners, hearing what the conversation goes. So as we start to remove possible options, that they're prepared to start doing their part as well, because this is something that will be done in collaboration with them. So I just wanted a point of clarification, sir.
Thank you. Tom, you have any questions?
No, this, I think this pretty well covers the waterfront on possible options. We can play the hand we have, or we can do some significant changes, but I think it pretty well covers what we're looking for.
Okay. Cindy?
I agree with Tom, but I do have some questions. So we've got one option here where the junior high would consist of 7th grade and 8th grade. Does that not seem like it could be a potential underuse of junior high, considering that now we've got 6th, 7th, and 8th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th in there? We can say Horace Mann. Or we've got Eisenhower plus 6th, 7th, and 8th in there.
Right.
So that, and then that made me think, well, okay, if we have grade 1 to 3 in one building, how many kids are we talking about, and how many kids will each of the buildings hold? So if we have 1 to 3 in one building, how many kids is that, and which buildings would be appropriate for that?
Those are actually really, really good questions. And the thing I would say about these various options and the way they were configured is that the people who brought up the options, thinking about what they were looking at the value of the configuration of that particular group of kids, not necessarily the efficiencies around the building use.
Well, I mean,
So there
Well,
are
there's no doubt about
options.
it. You can
But-
look at, once you start looking at all these options, you
Okay,
can find, we gotta say the strengths and weaknesses, which is, we'll get into that when we start rating the options.
what the focus is now, are there any other options
That's right.
of configurations, regardless of how silly they might be?
So I have no other options right now, but before I
Lots
can
of
rate any
questions.
of these, I'd like some numbers, because if we have 300 kids and we're going to try to put those 300 kids in a building that would hold 200 and still maintain 20 class size, it's not going to be possible.
Well,
So, I mean, that's the kind of number I want.
I hear what
I'm
you're
the
saying.
numbers person.
Well, I hear what you're saying. What we proposed about this process was to cut it down, because the administration had spent a lot of time but pulling all the numbers together for 10 different options and
True.
comparing 10.
True.
We proposed to rate based on what information you have, to narrow it down to 3 or 4. So the data can be prepared around the 4 best options. Okay?
So when we get to that point, I can look at Mike and Rob and Jared and say, will those numbers work?
That's
And-
going to
and-
happen. Once we
Yeah,
narrow this
because
down,
I just don't see how you can narrow it down if you don't know it's going to work. Because I might think that one is really great, and if it doesn't
Right,
work
you're
number-wise.
allowed to phone that friend, okay?
Okay.
You're voting. You're allowed to phone a friend and
Okay.
ask the question.
Okay.
Yes,
All
you
right.
can do that.
but I think to further explain what you're asking too, this may help Cindy. What I understand is that we're going to multi-vote We're going to get this down to hopefully 3 options, most 4 options. And then between now and the next meeting, the 2 consultants and the administrative team are going to put the facts and figures to some.
And the architect.
Yep.
options.
I was
The
gonna-
architect.
The architects are
Right.
available,
The
so they're
architect.
gonna
We'll
help
try
us
to
with
answer all
the
those
steps.
questions through that
Right.
process.
Okay. Does that help a little bit?
Yes.
Julia?
Are we gonna break these tonight?
The intent was yes.
Yeah.
Okay, the intent was yes.
We're going to get down to 3 options, most 4 options tonight.
There's some I like better than others, but I don't think I need too many numbers around them. I mean, there's just some that I just don't think that are helpful whatsoever. So there's 2 that I would throw out immediately.
Well, right, but we'll do that through the criteria rate.
And that's, and that's
We'll
the
give you
whole
the
option.
we'll give you the opportunity to do that.
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
I have to, but can I bring up a concern?
Yep.
I'm gonna bring up a concern
No,
that I
right.
think is worth talking about, okay? We knew, you knew that Mr. Schroth is on vacation. And we are actually prepared to speak on his behalf related to choosing some options, okay? Now, there are 3 other board members. So do you have a quorum? You have a
We're
quorum?
not voting to,
Yes, we have a quorum.
for a decision, but we do have a
There's
quorum.
5 of
Well,
us.
but my
Right.
question
Cameron's
related to,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Tamara.
So we have 6.
Everybody's had plenty of notice to get here.
Right.
well, we actually have a board member on Zoom.
Well, that's fine. You can participate that way, but we gotta have them on.
Yeah.
Well, so,
Let's keep going here.
right, but I'm gonna need the board member on Zoom to get me their
Right, we will.
data.
You figure that out in the meantime here. Admin given comments, discussion now, Mike? Or?
No, I think my comments are similar to Ms. Cinda, Madam Vice President. There's some that I like more favorable than others. I think we need some time to vet it out. What I appreciate is your leadership tonight, trying to whittle some of these out so it gives us direction. And as Deb said, this is something that's going to be done in collaboration with this administrative team, as well as, Deb and the architect firm. So this will help us guide our work, because the board has to understand one thing tonight, and I know you know this, and I'm being redundant intentionally. There will be a cost associated with the architect firm to help us vet these out. So we want to make sure we spend our time and our money wisely as we will start to whittle these down. And we won't have all the facts tonight, but I encourage you to make have a good conversation about what you kind of like. And if I can quote Rodney, this is the 10,000 foot view, right? Which ones you really kind of like, and then what's our job to go through and look at the ingredients that make you a good dinner and see what you want to go with and see what options you like. But right now, we kind of need your feedback as far as what you want on the menu.
Okay. I'll come back to me, but I'll go to you, Tammy.
No, I think these are pretty thorough. I can't think of anything else that could be an option.
Thank you. I'll echo that comment. I think too, it's a pretty exhaustive list of options. And this may be a facts and figure question that I wrote down, but is there data that supports 5th grade in a junior high or middle school one way or the other? Is there, overwhelming data that says it works or it doesn't work? Because I think that's a big question with these options. I don't want to get into cost. I don't want to get into classroom, class
The only
size,
data that I
anything
can
like
give
that.
you right off the cuff is that there are existing middle school or junior high school programs in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that have 5th grade students.
Yeah.
So it's not common. It's probably not as common as a 6, 7, 8, or if you have, or a very traditional junior high school. Some districts still have 7, 8, 9.
Right.
But depending, that answer the question. Now, I think when we went through the rationales, there were a number, although in no way was it unanimous, but there were a number of concerns expressed about from a developmental standpoint of putting 5th graders in with older students. But to answer your question, there are, we could come back to you even with a list of, there are some school configurations in Pennsylvania that have 5th graders in with older students.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not that it doesn't happen.
Rod, and when you say in 5th graders in with 8th to 9th graders, they're not actually in the classroom with those.
No.
Right
In most
now,
places where they have
right
that.
now, we're operating the 5th grade as an isolated class in that building, but it's in that building.
I've heard your conversations here about trying to segregate your 4th or 5th grade students in the current junior high setup. And in many of those situations, absolutely what you're saying is that there are still strategies to segregate and try to keep the 5th graders, I'm going to say, a little bit separate from the older students. But at some point, in some districts, I will say, based on building histories, based on budgetary issues, it's not, it does happen.
Yeah.
It does happen.
Okay.
Mr. Kerr, just to add to it,
From a standpoint,
sorry, Mr. Green, Ms. Leeper wrote on there saying, I agree, this is a comprehensive list. I have nothing to add. So,
Okay, well, good, thanks. So we'll open it up to the room here first. If you'd raise your hand and I can call on you if you have any comments. You have any comments, Ben?
Yeah, I do. You guys hear me about speak loudly?
No.
They might not hear you on Zoom.
Sir, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Good.
So, yeah, I guess, my first preference, so I'm Ben Ford, and I live in the borough and I live in the school district. And I've been engaged with sort of especially our elementary school configurations for the last decade, my family and I. And so I've thought about this quite a bit. And so my preference, as I've said before to you guys, is to keep all 4 of the elementary schools functioning. So basically your 0 option or your option 1, however you guys are sort of configuring it. Beyond that, and I understand the realities of your budget, and this has come up again and again and again for 10 years. Sorry, I got a 3-year-old here. Has come up again and again, and so I understand that there's real issues here. But I guess I would add to it is that 1 sec, bud. Nobody. Let me just sit tight. I apologize. That there's yeah, sure. And this is not a play for sympathy here. This is my reality. There's I understand that you feel like you got to do something with this and you got to reconfigure and make some movements. And I would just sort of put additional reality on that that the schools, in particular Horace Mann and Eisenhower, the junior high and the senior high, are in neighborhoods and they're part of communities. And so the other reality is that shutting them down or reconfiguring such that there's nothing in a school has a very real effect on that community. And so I would ask the board that as you move forward with reconfigure plan, to also have some thought about what you're going to do with a building if you were to make it not a school anymore. And I understand from the consultant's perspective, this might be a hindrance or slow things down, but it's already a pretty complicated process, even if you get it down to 3 or 4. And so the additional complication of thinking about what a building would be used for, I think is worth having running parallel with what you're currently discussing. And so, if you end up with a school you're not going to use, pre-K or kindergarten in there wouldn't be bad. Hold on.
Are we at 3 minutes?
So yeah, sorry. One more second.
Hurry up, Ben.
I apologize.
Time limit.
Yeah, I understand. So pre-K counts or in kindergarten, a STEM academy or God forbid an arts academy. Looking at retraining for what's going to happen to oil and gas in this area very soon, probably Reggie or not. Any number of other things could be done with that building, and there are state and federal funds to support that. And so that creates more work, and I understand that creates more work, but it's an opportunity to take something that would might be considered a deficit and make it a positive, right? If you put something really interesting in a building that you've now surplused, you have the opportunity to draw people into your district, which begins to get at your problem around enrollments and your problem around tax base by getting more people here. And so that's what I would advocate for. And I would love to see that be part of this process as you move forward. So again, thank you all for your time and your service.
Thank you. And Mike, before I go further here, there's no other board members on the call other than Tamara? And
That's all I see.
Nobody had a comment?
That's all I see at this time, sir.
Okay. Anybody else in the room here have comments about the reconfiguration?
Or other options?
Yeah, all I would like to advocate for is, having kids in the house 7 to 13, and keep it at all, keep the 5th graders out of the junior high. It just kind of makes sense. Living with them, I see the differences every day. You guys are well past that.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody online have their hands raised, or if you want to talk, please raise your hand and then we'll call on you.
There's no hand raised? No hands raised.
Okay, somebody,
Josh just raised his hand. Josh,
Just a humble request to have the superintendent and some of the people who are presenting tonight stay after for questions. That's all.
Josh, yeah, this is Mr. Vukovic. We can do that. We have an executive session afterwards. If I can't do it afterwards, call me or we'll figure it out. But it's not insurmountable. We'll make sure we get the information you need. Okay.
10-4, and thank you very much.
yeah, we plan to start that exec session at 7:00. So. Okay, Deb, I guess it's
back to you.
back to you guys.
Okay, so Jackie, I have to ask.
Or hold on
you-
1 second.
Okay.
What was that hand raised?
Mr. Kerr, I saw that, and it was just a comment from the public who said that they agree with the comment made with Mr. Ford. I also prefer to see 5th grade not included with 6 to 8. So I don't, from
Okay.
public.
Sorry, Deb.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure that because Ms. Lieber is on Zoom and not here in the room, I want to make sure that she can actually give me her votes. And I want to vote for her to keep this all anonymous because we're going to use the option finder polling system again. So, Jackie, did you give her my phone number? Ms. Lieber, do you have my phone number? And the ability to text me?
It's in the chat. I've not gotten a response if she's able to do that or not.
Okay. So. Oh, she said yes. Okay, good. So would you send me a text? Would you send me a text, please? So that I have your phone, so I have communication with you, and I'm looking for feedback from you. And of course, while I'm waiting for her text, 7 of my family members are planning a birthday party on a group text. Just
So you're gonna have to sift
because
between
this is what we're
your.
doing.
Yeah.
No. Oh, no, hopefully she'll come up at the top of the list. Is this her? Nope, that's not her.
So can you go through what we're gonna do while
Yes,
you're
I
waiting
can
on?
go through what we're gonna do. So what we're gonna do while I'm waiting to hear from her is we are going to, so you have your options in front of you. We are going to use this, we're gonna use the option finder again, and we are going to rate each of these options. Oh, thank you. We're gonna rate each of these options based on the 5 criteria that you all selected in our last meeting, okay? So basically what we're gonna do is I'm going to.
So do you want me to bring your?
The 5 criteria are how well would this building configuration support creating an age-appropriate learning environment? That's the first criteria. I'm just gonna run through each one and then I'll do this.
Deb, do you want your screen brought up there yet?
Oh, I do want my screen brought up there. Oh, thanks. That's important. I have to see what I see.
Holy smoly.
Okay.
You're a magic man.
Randy
Thank
handed
you.
over the power.
Okay. So the criteria is, there's 5 criteria. The first is how well would this building configuration support creating an age-appropriate learning environment? That's the first criteria. The second criteria is how well would this building configuration support access to and positively impact special education? Okay. There she is. Okay, excellent. The third criteria is how well would this building configuration create staffing efficiencies or lower costs? And keep in mind that pretty much anyone who brought up options that talked about staffing efficiencies talked about the fact of creating better programming and putting folks to do more support, not cut staff. Okay.
Say cut resources. They're not
Staffing
saying
efficiency.
reallocate resources, but no one actually said cut resources.
Okay. And then the fourth criteria is how well would this building configuration lower maintenance costs? And then how affordable, and here's where we might have to phone friend, okay? How affordable would the implementation costs be for this building configuration? And that's one that's hard to
How do we do this?
even think about now.
You gave us 5 questions for each option.
5 questions.
We're gonna
for each
go
option.
through-
We have
So
10.
we're gonna go through them.
So we'll just, I mean, it
One at
won't
a
take
time.
very long.
So your finger's gonna get sore.
Your finger's gonna get sore.
I've been doing this, I've been exercising all day.
So get ready for that.
I have to
Okay.
say, just so you know, I don't like to go fast when I'm looking at numbers that I'm not certain of, and I'm looking at costs that I'm not certain of, and I'm looking at ramifications that I'm not aware of. So
How do you want to fix it?
I just don't want to be rushed. So I'm
Right?
just
Or
saying,
in general?
well, my opinion will become known as we go on, but if,
Well, yeah.
looking at this, to be told that we're gonna come down to 3 or 4 tonight, I don't see how unless I get some answers to questions. So I'm just saying, I want to move forward.
Let's give it a
Yes,
try.
yeah, well, I'm not saying I'm not gonna try. I'm just saying, just expect my questions.
We know you want to try.
I am
Okay.
trying, I know.
So looking at option 1,
And let me say too, we came up with these 5 criteria.
Yeah.
The board.
Yes, in a very quick, similar session. I
I
just
just
like
wanted
to
that-
move carefully and slowly when I'm talking about kids' education and taxpayers'
I don't
dollars.
think we could have better criteria.
Okay, but the object today is to knock off the ones that have little support.
Right.
Yeah,
So if
I know we
knock
can do
two
that.
off, That's what we isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, I know.
If we knock any off, it's a win,
Okay, good.
okay?
Well,
At
some
this point.
will definitely knock off.
Okay, so Tamara, send me your vote for how well would this building for option 1, how well would option 1's building configuration support creating an age-appropriate learning environment?
We're supposed to
5
vote
is
now too.
excellent, 4 is very good,
Yes.
3
Right,
is
but
good,
now,
2 is
Okay.
fair,
The
1
voting
is
is open.
poor. Vote, the polling is open.
Did Cheney leave? It'd be nice to have it a little warmer in here.
Okay. How well does option 1's building configuration support access to and positively impact special education? Camera, please send me your text. It worked the last time.
So I guess I have a question on that one, and I know this is not what you want to hear, but
Tamara, go ahead and talk.
I feel like, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Is there an echo?
Yes.
you have your microphone
I
on
do,
your
but-
computer,
But it wasn't working when she was talking. I could see her talking, yes.
I don't know.
because she's not,
You guys would have to shut off a mic or 2 over there.
Is she coming out of that one?
No, but I can see
Can
her.
you hear me now?
Okay, she's trying to talk, but she's not coming across the computer.
Mike?
Can you hear me now?
Probably because the, well,
Probably because something else, because she's taking over the computer.
is the microphone on Deb's computer?
While they keep talking? Yeah. Better hold on one second. We can get back up.
Okay, but she's not voting. So if she has something to say, we need to hear what she has to say.
Remember, I'm gonna give my phone to, yeah, and she's gonna talk directly on this line.
That's all right. She wasn't coming through the
It's a
radio.
little bizarre.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
because
just that.
when she's displaying her best.
Oh, you know what? I can call her on my phone too, rather than have her text me.
So we need to flip it back to.
What do you want to do?
I mean, do you have something to say publicly, Tamara?
What I want to say is that in order for me to judge this configuration, I guess I would need to know if there are special ed teachers that work across grade levels.
Do that. We can hear her in the meeting.
It's
recorded.
This would work if they don't, like, I don't know, it's very similar to, it's obviously, so what would that do to our, to the efficiency of special ed? I don't know. This is what we have.
It's important, but we don't, I'm answering this question. It's important, but we don't know the answer to that level of detail at this point. Once we knock off the edges of this, then we'll go into more detail. Is that right, Rod?
Well, some of the configurations, at least from what we heard through the commentary so far from administrators, consolidation of grade levels in one building actually help create special ed efficiencies and would make the ability to expand the special ed offerings to those grade levels more robust by putting them in one place. But you might be able to speak more to that.
I think what I'd say publicly, it depends. So let's just go through the process. Let's see where we get so we don't overcommit ourselves to anything, because I think that would be disingenuous, unfair to everyone. Because we don't know yet. We don't know what options you're looking at. We don't know a great configuration under option one, if that's what we're talking about. I mean, we know there's some flaws in the system like anything else. But I don't want to overcommit. I hope that's okay with you, Mr. Harley, because I don't want to misspeak, and we're not there yet.
The other thing is, I think when this issue came up when we were doing the interviews, we want to emphasize to everyone that no matter what you come up with your new special ed plan, everything has to be approved by the Bureau of Special Education. So if you say we're going to reconfigure a building, we're going to move classrooms, we're going to do support teachers here, your special ed director and your group will have to submit a whole new plan. So it's going to get scrutinized from the state also as to whether it meets all the federal and state regulations.
And if I could just add on, that's why it makes it difficult to answer, because one question, staffing. We don't know about case rosters. We don't know how many kids right now. I can't tell you with certainty, or even space. So I don't want to misspeak and mislead anyone to that point this time.
Okay, good point. Okay, so option one, from an operations perspective, how well would this big building configuration create staffing efficiencies and or lower costs? Option one. Option one, how well would this building configuration create staffing efficiencies? Okay, option one. How well would this building configuration lower maintenance costs? And then how affordable would the implementation of option one be for this building configuration? Well, considering it's already what you have.
I'm getting blown away by all these questions for the current plan that we already have. I mean,
That's the easiest one to answer.
It's the easiest one.
Actually, it's not.
How affordable would the implementation cost be for this building configuration? So it's the one that's already existing.
Right. We should just say that.
Okay, keypad number 125. Who is that?
Me.
Would you love again?
which number for the last question?
Last one. Okay, now option two. How well would this building configuration support creating an age-appropriate learning environment? Option two, how well would this building configuration support access to and positively impact special education? Option two, how well would this building configuration create staffing efficiencies and or lower costs? Option 2, how well would this building configuration lower maintenance costs? And option 2, how affordable would the implementation cost be for this building configuration? Okay, option 3, how well would this building configuration support creating an age-appropriate learning environment? Option 3, how well would this building configuration support access to and positively impact special education? Option 3, how well would this building configuration create staffing efficiencies and or lower costs? Option 3, how well would this building configuration lower maintenance costs? How affordable would option 3 be related to implementation costs? Option 4, how well would this building configuration? This is now option 4. Option 4, how well would this building configuration support creating an age-appropriate learning environment? Option 4, how well would this building configuration support access to and positively impact special education? Option 4, how well would this building configuration create staffing efficiencies and or lower costs? Option 4, how well would this building configuration lower maintenance costs? How affordable would the implementation cost be for option 4? Okay, option 5, how well would this building configuration support creating an age-appropriate learning environment?
Can you please scroll down to option 5 because we can't see it, those of us who are virtual. Thank you.
For option 5, how well would this building configuration support creating an age-appropriate learning environment?
Oh, we did that already.
We did. She asked me to repeat the question.
Oh, okay, okay,
I'm waiting for Tamara.
okay.
Option 5, how well would this building configuration support access to and positively impact special education? Option 5, how well would this building configuration create staffing efficiencies and or lower costs? Option 5, how well would this building configuration lower maintenance costs? And option 5, how affordable would the implementation costs be for this building configuration? Option 5. Option 6, how well would this building configuration support creating an age-appropriate learning environment? Option 6, how well would this building configuration support access to and positively impact special education? Option 6, how would this building configuration create staffing efficiencies and or lower costs? Option 6, how well would this building configuration lower maintenance costs? Option 6, how affordable would the implementation cost be for this building configuration? Option 7, how well would this building configuration support creating an age-appropriate learning environment? Option 7, how well would this building configuration support access to and positively impact special education? Option 7, how would this building configuration create staffing efficiencies and or lower costs? Option 7, how well would this building configuration lower maintenance costs? How affordable would the implementation cost be for this building configuration? Option 7. Option 8, how well would this building configuration support creating an age-appropriate learning environment?
We can't see option 8.
Option 8, how well would this building configuration support access to and positively impact special education? Option 8, how well would this building configuration create staffing efficiencies or lower costs? Option 8, how well would this building configuration lower maintenance costs? Option 8, how affordable would the implementation costs be for this building configuration? Option 9, how well would this building configuration support creating an age-appropriate learning environment? Option 9, how well would this building configuration support access to and positively impact special education?
I pushed the wrong button.
Push it again.
Push it again, right away. Okay. Option 9, how well would this building configuration create staffing efficiencies and or lower costs? Option 9, how well would this building configuration lower maintenance costs? Option 9, how affordable would the implementation cost be to implement this building configuration? And then option 10, how well would this building configuration support creating an age-appropriate learning environment?
Can you scroll down, please? We can't see option 10.
Okay, so option 10, you want to explain option 10, Rodney? That's, the option 10 is K, go ahead.
Just option 10 again would be to have 3 elementary buildings with K-5, which would include the pre-K counts program, so we throw the pre in there. The junior high would remain 6 to 8, and senior high would remain 9 to 12. So it essentially, it's different from the current configuration, which splits the pre-K to 3 up and the 4 to 5 up. It just would make it K to 5 in all three buildings, enclosed one elementary building. What option 10 is.
So it would be similar to the existing one.
It would be similar.
No.
So it's, how well would this building configuration support creating an age-appropriate learning environment?
It's similar to option 6.
So that's the first question.
That one closes.
I thought we already started the
I want to
answering
think, I would
options.
understand option 10 before you go.
Well, I'll just say, actually, option 10 is actually most similar to option 3.
Yeah.
If you're looking at your options, 'cause I started to put together some similarity things. Option 10 and option 3 are similar, but the difference is that option 3 puts 5th grade in the junior high, and option 10 does not.
Right.
So that's how I would distinguish between those two options. 3 and 10. They're very similar, but 5 now moves to the junior high and option 3.
Okay.
Next question.
Okay, so option 10, how well would this building configuration support access to and positively impact special education? Option 10, how well would this building configuration create staffing efficiencies and or lower costs? Option 10, how well would this building configuration lower maintenance costs? And then how affordable would the implementation cost be for this building configuration? Option 10. Okay, so I need 5 minutes to put this data together and tell you the results.
Try to get someone.
So, do you want to switch this off? So everybody doesn't have to watch me.
Calculate your algorithms.
I mean, I'm cutting and pasting Excel charts together. mean,
Oh, I
you really
understand.
see that.
Can I hit the restroom? You're waiting, doing that?
So, by the way, happy birthday. And this isn't a present, but I don't need my program working that. I'm not sure anybody.
Thank you.
He gave it to us for a Christmas in July present, and I'm like, okay, I don't carry a key ring. Do you want me to tell you about the phone call? Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's great. Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. They're not gonna wait that long. But you should know both of them. To them, it's like my father. And then, you know, yeah. You guys want candy? Yeah, the other one. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Horribly, and mine horribly.
All right.
Just while they're doing that.
Is it okay? Because nobody's.
They're doing some, looking at crunching numbers. We can just meet us in the public.
They had the ones from Germany that I liked.
Hey, Josh, this is Mr. Vukovic. I saw that you asked a question about being muted. They are going through and compiling the numbers, so we're just in a little bit of a break in the law. So we just muted the stuff while we muted the microphone while we hang out. Does that address your question, sir? All right, sir. We'll turn the microphone back on as soon as we're done, ready to present the findings from Strategy Solutions. Mr. Green, would you mind muting again? Ladies and gentlemen, we are resuming the meeting. Thank you for your patience. Deb, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Okay, so there are 4 that are clustered together in terms of top rating. And then there's a drop off with the 5th
Do you want me
option.
to put it up there? See that? On the
Yeah,
screen
you can,
behind.
if you want to. If you want to put it up. I can make it a little bit bigger so people can see it. Okay? So at the top of the list of interest and ratings, it was option 2. Okay? Option 2 scored an aggregate total average of 19.9, which is the 5 criteria added together.
So option 2, I missed the whole first part of it. So what were you saying? Because we're worried about the font. So what were you saying?
Before you do that, I'm on the website, I'm on the feed, and I'm not getting what's on the screen.
You wouldn't. I mean, that's coming off of her computer.
Yes.
The other computer right there is feeding what's happening in the room. I don't know that we can project that.
No, you can't. But
So what's on her computer can't be projected to people on the.
No.
that's correct. But they can hear it. Yep.
Okay, so at the top of the list was option 2 with an aggregate average score. Because what I did was I took the average scores of each of the independent criteria and added them together. So the highest score was option 2 at 19.9, which is an average of the total average. Okay? Then the next option was option 10, actually, with 17.6. That was the second favorite, if you look at all the scores together. And then the third favorite was option 1, which is the current configuration. 16.2. And then the fourth score was option 3 at 16.1. Very close between option 1 and option 3. And then it drops off to 15.
What was the score on the 4th option?
16.1. The next option, number 5, in terms of ranking, was option 6 with a score of 15.
Okay.
The next one was option 4 with a score of 14.2. The next is option 5 with a score of 13.5. 13.5. The next is option 7 with a score of 12.8. The next is option 8 with a score of 11.8. And the last is option 9 with a score of 10.9.
So I guess what we're going to decide next is whether we go with 3 or 4. Is that?
I think given the way the scores fell out, that I'm going to say pick the top 4 because 3 and 4 are so close to one another. We should probably look at both of them. But there's a drop off in the scoring between 4 and 5.
Yeah.
15. So it goes down from 16.1 to 15. That's a pretty big drop. That's a pretty big drop. You know, given the averages of all of the averages, that's a pretty big drop.
Of the 6 that are under the line, is there any that want to pull up by agreement? Is there anything that we can pull up?
Option 9. I didn't pull it off. That came in last.
That came in
Option 9
last.
came in last.
Dead last.
They came in dead last, and pretty much all of you rated all of those criteria pretty well.
To me, it's just, if you're I think it's obvious that I'm not even surprised that I'm
Yeah, and there's a big, big, big difference between, the interest in the potential thinking around option 2 versus option 9. I mean, it's like double the scores. I mean, if you look at them, the scores are almost double.
Okay, anything else? Any comment?
I mean, at this point, our recommendation would be to look at the top 4.
Yeah, and I would say this, if you look at it, they are distinctly different. They each have
Yeah.
kind of unique, so, I mean, number 2 obviously says, let's put 4 and 5 in one building. And you heard some people say that rationale, they thought was a good rationale, was helping for transition to the junior high, but also put all the teachers in 4th grade and all the teachers in 5th grade under one roof for more collaboration. But then you go to 10th. Sorry about that.
And Rod, we're going to try and finish here. We're going to try and finish at 7:15. We're already 15 minutes past our meeting. So
that's fine. I'm just saying, I think the 4 are different enough that they have different options that really don't blend together. I said 2 obviously gives you that 4 and 5 in one building. 10 gives you that option of let's go back to having K-5 in all 3 buildings. So it preserves the 6, 7, 8 junior high, but puts all the grade levels. And I think that addresses the concern that some people have about having different elementary age children in different buildings. It puts no. I'm not looking at that. Okay. I'm just putting out what seems to be coming through. And then 1 again says kind of keep the current configuration. It seems to be working. And then 3 again goes to an option of closing 1 building, but getting pre-K to 4 in 3 buildings, and then moving the 5th grade to the junior high. So you have one option that talks about moving 5th grade to the junior high. So you do have
one option is also one option to keep the current configuration.
That's number 1. Yes. Yeah. So you have again, but that doesn't put all your 4th and 5th grade under one roof. I'm saying so you have your 4 options have some very unique identifying
differences
yes.
between the 4.
Yeah, you have some substantial differences between each one of those 4 options.
Yeah. All right. If nothing else, we want to close this meeting and we have executive session to start. Nothing else. Thank you all.
That was interesting.
Yep. Thank you, Deb and Rod.